Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world to share their insight and expertise so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schock, and I am the co-founder of the Spotlight to Scale Accelerator, where we drive revenue for companies by making sure they're seen as the go-to expert in their industry versus just another product or service. And today, I have the honor of being joined by my guest, Jonathan Reynolds with Mindful Life, Mindful Work, Inc. Welcome, Jonathan, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Heidi.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure. And can you kick us off, Jonathan, with telling us, about yourself and your company and your role within it?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, I grew up in a small town in the Midwest in Wisconsin, and after college, like so many people, was unsure what I wanted to do with my life. And so at that stage, I looked in the mirror and thought, well, if balancing my checkbook and learning to drive a car was all there was to learning how to be a human being, I was going to have a sad 80 years. And so in that moment, started to go inward and to look at inward development practices, things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and slowly over time got more and more invested, made a little bit of a career out of it, started to surround myself with other people doing similar work. And in the early days, the company Mindful Life, Mindful Work was more like a consortium. It was just listing people on a website so I could scale my sphere of influence and be in bigger conversations with companies beyond my own services. And then fast forward to about 2018, we formed Mindful Life, Mindful Work into a C corporation in the United States. And we offer coaching, consulting, training, and assessments. And we've always delivered everything remotely. And then COVID hit, so we were already online with a lot of that capacity. But we also built out then more B2C offerings, things like events. We just launched a scalable community. We're developing a scalable coaching program, and then also a mindful marketplace, a multi-vendor marketplace for folks. So we're doing lots of things, but at its core, our through line is really mindful approaches to living and working and making those applicable and accessible to everyone.
I think that mindfulness inside of our work and inside of our life is super important. And I'm learning how to navigate all of that. And I think there's a way to create a healthy balance. And I think it's such an important piece for people to if you're not using it, to learn the importance of it and utilizing it. And if you're using it, to learn different ways that can best benefit you in your business growth and personal growth. Can you share with us your mission? I know that's something that, well, first of all, yeah, can you share your mission for Mindful Life, Mindful Work, and how does it help individuals and organizations thrive?
Yeah, again, thanks for the question. I mean, the original mission was really to make things accessible and applicable, and that still is the through line of all of our work. But the ultimate mission is to make the world a better place for everyone. You know, whether we call that world peace or something else, like how do we actually improve everyone's life? And so I see self-awareness as the vehicle for that. And so whether that's in an individual sense of self-awareness or a systemic sense, whether that individual is an organization. And so what we've seen over the years is that when you inject awareness and awareness practices into any vessel, into any system, it's better for everyone. And things like performance and productivity also go up because the people are executing on whatever tasks are being asked of them in a company. When they feel fully resourced and the best version of themselves, of course, they perform better. And they feel cared for, they feel loved by their company, they feel honored and respected. And I think one of the things that we've seen over the last 5 years in sort of the great exodus of companies is people don't feel valued as people. And so when you put in care, when you put in mindful self-awareness, it just improves all of the intangibles, but a lot of the tangibles as well.
Yeah, it's a win-win all around, because everything, the outside success of your company starts from within, right, with your teams. And when you can create that healthy environment, it's going to show on the outside as well. And like you said, it's going to increase productivity, and it also is going to help retain those people, correct?
Yeah, you have to fully support the people who you want to deliver the services, whether those are internal functions or external and client-facing functions. If they're not supported and don't have the tools that they need, and the tools aren't just having the right computer or the right desk chair, those are important, but the tools are also letting them know that you value them as a piece of the whole. And the moment that you do that, then all of a sudden things change. It has to be genuine, though. That's part of what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of in the mindfulness fad, people saying they're doing it, but they're not really doing it. They're doing a training here or there. But to really embed this in a culture is to make it an ongoing practice. I like to say something is sustainable when you feasibly could do it forever. And if you can't see it as an ongoing practice, nobody brushes their teeth once and says, I'm done for my life, or eats one salad and says, I ate healthy, I never have to eat healthy again. No, we
Right.
all recognize that these are practices, and the same is true if you want to have a healthy organization.
Yeah, and just like what, like you said, eating healthy, when it comes to whether we want to get healthy or whatever, lose weight in our personal life, it takes time, right?
Hmm.
We didn't get there overnight. We're not going to get to the other side of it overnight. Same thing internally with organizations and such. And so when you emphasize simplicity, and I love this, I love the word simple, simplicity. I always try to keep everything as simple as possible. Whenever I was working with my clients, I would say keep it super simple because it's easy to overcomplicate things. So when you're in your business, you emphasize that keeping it simple, simplicity in leadership and decision making. Why is simplicity so powerful, and how can leaders embrace it?
Well, a couple of reasons. One is being is simple. Like, just if you're listening right now, just pause and do nothing. You don't have to do anything to be. You already are. And the moment we do that, then we can move from a place that's actually grounded. Thought is complex, and thought is really important because it helps us execute on complex tasks and functions. But the ground of that is really simple. And anytime we notice ourselves overwhelmed or feeling like we don't have enough space, either physically or emotionally or mentally, come back to that simplicity as a foundation. And part of the reason that's important then in establishing protocols and practices is it makes them repeatable. It makes them more simple. Because if, for instance, if every system gets too complex, then nobody can do it. If it takes too long, nobody can do it. It's like if you have a personal health practice that takes you 6 hours a day, it might be a really amazing practice, but can you do that 6 hours every day? No. You want to find the one that's 45 minutes a day, but still as very effective, because then you can do it every day. And so the same is true. I think when complexity gets too involved or too difficult to navigate, you're in a place of collapse. You're in a place where it's not going to work anymore. And so that for me, in my personal practices, in my personal life, but then in the way I set up my own business systems within my company, I make everything a practice. And if something feels overwhelming or doesn't feel right, I need to adjust the practice. It's not that, oh, this thing has to be done this way. Well, no, find the way that's actually sustainable. And if you have turnover or people want to hand tasks off in a larger company, the simpler the better, because then it can be handed off more easily.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm hearing you say right there is simplicity leads to or equals sustainability.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, I love that. So clarity, Jonathan, is crucial in both personal and professional success. So what practices do you recommend for gaining clarity in business and life?
Yeah, yeah, thank you again. So clarity, sometimes there's a lot of people in the mindful services space, and a lot of them aren't particularly successful. They're good at what they do, but they either change their business name every 3 to 5 years, or they're doing all sorts of different stuff. And without that consistency, again, pick the thing that you can commit to feasibly forever because it's so important to you that you can commit to it in that ongoing way. And so I like to say that I jokingly say I've been relatively successful because I'm a good translator and I'm stubborn. And stubborn is just a funny way to say committed to what I've chosen. And so I think clarity comes from that simplicity, for instance, from being like, there's a time to go forage and to look at all the options and to take in new information. But then there's a time to sit alone and really sit with, well, what do I want to create? Whether it's in my role at my current job or whether you're an entrepreneur and it's your own business, like what do I really, really want to create? What doesn't just sound like a good, clever idea and might meet market need for 18 months? No, what matters to me? What has purpose? And the only way to actually get into that is to take in the information, do your information gathering phase, but then sit alone for a time and be like, okay, what arises naturally that I actually care about when I'm not getting external stimulus?
And you mentioned consistency. So I have a question. Commitment and consistency often separate those who succeed from those who struggle. Because many times we could, like, throwing spaghetti at a wall, thinking that this didn't work, so I need to try something different. So what strategies help leaders and teams stay committed and consistent in their efforts?
Well, I can speak mostly to my company development, which is the baseline has really not changed at all over the last 20 years. And yet we still throw spaghetti. We still have iterations. I like a lean startup model or ideology where, you put out a minimum viable product and then you see what works and then what doesn't work and then you modify and you iterate. And this is an endless process. It's a natural process to growth. Run an experiment, modify, run an experiment, modify infinitely. And so I think companies that are willing to do that, that are willing to not try to get this perfect thing that then is either a huge success or a huge failure, because it's not about whether it's a success or a failure. It's that ideology doesn't work. It's all or nothing. And I think getting away from this all or nothing, good or bad, right or wrong, dichotomous thinking helps companies evolve and actually grow more organically around. And it doesn't mean we can't be strategic. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be super strategic. And yet there should be this iterative process. And that's what I've seen, because then it's much more relational. It's in relational to the other members of the team, but it's also in relation to the market and to the product itself, to the technology. If there's a technology component, things evolve. Like, so for instance, many of Mindful Life, Mindful Work services, we wanted to create a decade ago, but the technology wasn't there. And so did we just try to force it without the technology? Well, a lot of companies do. And why do that to yourself? Why make your life difficult on yourself? We waited for the technology to show up in a way that, like, oh, now it's easy to do the thing that we said we wanted to do. And then we just do it with the technology. Like, for instance, the new social media platform. Would have loved to have done that 15 years ago. There was no technology for a company our size to do that. You would have to build it out like a Facebook. Now there's technology in place, so of course we're going to do that. That's something we've talked about for a decade.
Well, now that you've brought that up, I've been wanting to talk about that. Can you tell us about your community?
Very exciting and excited about it. So we launched what we consider the world's first mindful social media network and platform. It's called Mindset Social, mindset-social.com. And we launched it just 5 weeks ago, and we already have almost 300 members, 300 users. And we're pushing this thing pretty hard because we think people are looking for an alternative to how they relate socially online. And so, of course, you can't regulate things completely, nor should you, but we're trying to create a kind, mindful space for people to share that sort of content and that are interested in meeting like-minded folks in that space.
I mean, I love it. I'm like so excited about it. I just asked you before we got out. I'm like, I really need to know the name of that again because I want to join it. So I'll be jumping in there. And for you listening, make sure you get in there too. It's mindset-social.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it'll be great to have you in there. You share your podcast episodes and anything else you're working on. Again, we want it populated with as much good stuff as we can find.
absolutely. I'm excited. So, Jonathan, many professionals struggle with burnout and stress. How can mindfulness help create balance and resilience in a high pressure work environment?
So I'll use an example from a student about 30 years ago. She said to me, she said, when I go on a normal vacation, I come back and I need a vacation from my vacation because I had so much fun, but I'm depleted. And I'm like, okay. And then she's like, but when I go on a mindfulness retreat and I come back, I feel rejuvenated. So she had the analogy of like putting money in the bank. When you're on a fun vacation, it's a great time, but you're spending money from your energy bank. You get back, you're tired. When you practice mindfulness, you're putting money into the energy bank. And so it really supports this resourcedness. It's like when we get 2 hours of really good sleep versus 10 hours of bad sleep. 2 hours is better than 10 hours in that situation. And so the quality time spent practicing mindfulness, whether in a formal sense, like a meditation practice, or an informal sense, just noticing and being self-aware, helps energize and fuel us in a way that helps whatever we're executing on be that much more easy and seamless. So, I mean, there are specific protocols, but they come from self-awareness. For instance, if I send you a message and I don't hear back from you and it's irritating me, I need to notice that irritation and I need to follow up in a way that helps me stay grounded. If I just feel like there's nothing I can do and I just have to wait and get madder and madder, well, that's silly. Over time, we learn to send our first message in a way that is complete in itself. So then I send a message to you something like, hey, if I don't hear from you by 3 p.m., I'm going to assume it's a yes or a no or whatever I share. And that way I'm not felt waiting. So there's all sorts of little ways that we take care of ourselves in protocols and practices within a company and professionally that make a huge difference in whether we're depleted and angry or whether we feel resourced.
Well, I'm on board with that woman who you're sharing because I've gone on vacations and I felt the same way. You come back and it's depleted and you feel like you need a vacation from your vacation before you can jump back into work or whatever it is, your responsibilities. So I would always make sure I was back a day early because I didn't want to come home the day before I had to jump back into work or my responsibilities. So I'd always give myself a buffer. So I don't know if that's a mindfulness practice, but it definitely supported me. But I agree with you. When you're on vacation, you don't have, you can do these practices to support you so you can maximize your vacation to the fullest and then come back energized versus depleted. So can you share with us one powerful mindset practice, Jonathan, that anyone can incorporate into their daily routine for better focus and effectiveness?
I would say body awareness is central to all mindful and mindset practices. And ultimately, self-care boils down to spaciousness, giving ourselves a little bit of space. So anything that gives you a little space in the day. So for instance, when I was a practicing psychotherapist, in between client sessions, I'd go to the restroom and just wash my face, even if I didn't need to use the restroom. And even if I didn't feel like I needed to wash my face, just as a reset, as sort of a like metaphorical cleanse and start over. And so I suggest anything that does that. Step away from the computer and walk around the chair once or twice. Just do anything silly. Go outside, take a breath of fresh air. Build in gaps. And again, to use the psychotherapy model, psychotherapists tend to be on the 50-minute hour. So there's 10-minute gap between sessions. Well, I've been on the 50-minute hour my whole career. Why would you go right up to the last second and then have to get on the next call without even being able to jot down a note?
Right.
Um, Build in these gaps so it's not a pressure cooker all day long.
Yeah, I love the whole setting up a gap because I do the same thing and I think it's extremely important. When I wasn't doing it, I felt like I was always running behind. And then in that instance, there's a good chance that you can run behind because if something comes up or something happens, then you don't have that buffer time and that reset time. Like I agree with you to like, especially if you're going call to call to call. I feel like if we're going from 1 second to the next second, you haven't had a chance to close the conversation or and reset yourself for the next one so you're not fully present when you get to the next conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so important for that reset reason, right? Like I like to say that the way you begin and close any experience, the bookends of the experience are as important as the experience itself because they hold and inform how that experience goes. I mean, between calls, I might want to like grab a couple almonds and have a sip of water. Like if
Right.
you go back to back, you just don't even have time for that.
Yeah, like you said, body awareness and self-care, you get to take care of you, right?
Yeah.
It's super, super important. So, Jonathan, I'd like to switch gears into business growth, if that's okay with you. And then I want to get into how to contact you and how to reach out to you and all of your information. But as you were building this business and growing, and you've been successful in what you've been doing, what are some challenges that you faced in your growth journey, and how did you overcome them?
I think one of the biggest challenges is how big to get and how small to stay, and to make a decision around business size.
Mm.
Sometimes there's this idea that bigger is always better and just keep growing for growth's sake. But there's also a phrase in small business circles, build it small and keep it all. It's like sometimes keeping it really small. I mean, I saw, I think, a post on LinkedIn the other day, like keep it a business of one if you can. And again, people are sort of apologetic when I ask, well, how many employees in your business? And they say none, or I'm the only person. Well, don't apologize for that. That might be the intentional design, and it might be a really great design. And so that's okay. So I think that has been a challenge because I think at a certain stage, there was this sort of feeling I had of, oh, let's just keep growing. And then, but then you run into personnel issues, and there's sort of a max min problem, right? Like where you're too big not to sort of have HR involved, but you're too small to have HR involved. You're not quite there yet. And so that's been one real challenge. And so, and technology has changed the game, of course. Even to just do a mailing 30 years ago would have cost thousands of dollars and you wouldn't need a staff. Now you just push a button and MailChimp does it for you. So there's ways to make those decisions. And so I would just say with any business and business owner, decide what feels optimal. And optimal isn't perfect. It's optimal. It's best case scenario given what you want to create in your intentions. So yeah, business size has been sort of an ongoing process.
I love that answer. It's not one that I've ever heard before. As something to look into and be aware of. And I agree with you. I think that one of my mistakes I made when I first started was I scaled too fast, and that ended up pushing me back versus moving forward. So because there is the ups and downs, there are ups and downs in business. So you don't need to rush to the finish. You don't need to rush to grow. Just, we definitely need to grow, right? We want to be bringing revenue and making that happen and getting our clients and making sure our teams are well taken care of and happy, creating a good culture. But again, like you said, you don't have to, determine on what you want, and you don't have to know that from the beginning. This could be something that you're learning as you're going. And you may go a little too big, but you learn from that. And then, when things happen, you make decisions and you learn from that, right? Learn from that exponential growth if you do that. But I love that advice, and I think it's key. So if you're just getting started and you're a party of one, it's okay, it's good. And when you're ready, or you can bring on, your next person, but you don't compare yourself to other companies who are out there doing the same thing you are, because just because they may have, and that's how I scaled too fast. I was trying to, like, I saw other people and I'm like, oh, I need to have that many people. And they have scaled back. They used to have 80 on their team. Now I think they have 5. So it's definitely a good learning lesson, and such a good point. And so thank you for that. I think that's a big old nugget and takeaway today, Jonathan. So earlier we talked about throwing spaghetti at the wall. So what are some marketing strategies that have worked for you? Maybe is there something that you're doubling down on in 2025, or is it evolving for you? Like, what are some things that have worked for you? Because like you said, you look at, you're testing what's working, what's not working. And sometimes you do gotta throw spaghetti at the wall to see if it works or if it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. It's just a matter of knowing that and then tweaking it and retesting.
Yeah, yeah. One of the decisions I made early on is, 25 years ago, there was sort of the blogging craze. When the blogging craze first started, I thought, oh, I'm going to write a blog article every week. And that was fun for a couple months. And then it was like, I feel like I'm forcing myself to write about stuff that, it's just not arising organically. So then I made a decision. I'm not going to write anything unless I want to. And I made that decision on LinkedIn maybe 10 years ago or so, and really never forced myself. I didn't even create social media accounts until the moment arose where I wanted to create the new social media account on the new platform. And so really let it grow organically, didn't force myself into social media. And then at a certain point, I hired a social media guy. And I don't know if it was a combination of hiring him or the LinkedIn algorithm just fell in love with us for a year or two. But all of a sudden, we were getting like 3,000 new followers a month from doing almost nothing. And so I think there was a phase where LinkedIn maybe 4 years ago all of a sudden decided that anything mindful or mindfulness they were going to push out there, or who knows, maybe it was just us, I don't know. But I was tracking some of the other mindful organizations, and all of those numbers were just going up fast. And we were very fortunate to be a part of that mini wave. But I think that's where commitment and purpose are really important. Is you want to sleep good at night. And so you want to do work that you care about. You want to have your perfect day, whatever that means, today, not someday. You want to do, and we're never going to have our perfect day. It's not about getting to perfection, but it's like, what's my best possible day today? What do I actually care about? What do I want to send out? How do I want to be in this world as a person and someone who's doing business? Be that person, and then the right folks will find us. So we've really leaned on organic growth. I mean, we get approached almost weekly with investors and or people wanting to buy the company,
Oh, wow.
and we're just not interested because I love what I do. This is a family company. It's a lifetime company. I mean, maybe if somebody promised some ridiculous amount at some point when I'm older, I'll say yes. But at this stage, no, I created the thing that fits like a glove because I have to live in it. It has to be sustainable for me. And so those are suggestions when you're doing marketing. And we're on all the major platforms. We've touched a little bit of everything. But again, create a schedule too. I mean, if you ever do like an Instagram or a newsletter campaign workshop, they always say, well, create a schedule. And that's so nice. Like, because then I just know Mondays are my community day. Tuesdays are my product day. Wednesdays are my services day. Thursdays are my events day. And Fridays are my content day. And I just do one thing each day, and then on Monday I start back over. That's my actual schedule. So today is Wednesday, so I'm thinking about how to push services out.
Yeah, for tomorrow. That's your tomorrow day.
No, tomorrow's my events.
Tomorrow's events. Okay, today was events. I'm like, oh, and you're here with me on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love that. And I think that is key. Really keep it that part of the simplicity that you
Hmm.
created for yourself too, is you have a schedule, you stick with it, you know exactly what the day before, you know exactly what's happening tomorrow. When you wake up in the morning, you know exactly what you're working on that day. And I think and that's not throwing spaghetti at the wall. That is keeping it simple and structured, which is in your create also have sustainability. You can maintain that because it works for you.
Yeah, that structure supports freedom, right? Like, it's like scheduling calls. If you have a Calendly, don't let people schedule the day of. Make sure there's a 24 or 48-hour buffer because you want to go to sleep waking up to basically what you know you're going to have to do. You don't want to wake up and find there's a new call at 8 a.m. No,
Yeah.
make sure there's a buffer.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when you're new in business and you're having conversations and you're wanting to have people on your calendar, I think that sometimes we can say, "Oh, I can have a 2 hour window or a 4 hour window," and that is stressful. And you're not always going to be notified that that's coming in unless you're always connected to your email or however you're getting notified, which can be, doesn't look professional if you miss it. So I agree. Let yourself have that 24 to 48 hour for a lot of different reasons. But I agree with you to wake up and just know exactly what's happening that day. And you can
Yep.
prep better. If you need to do any research on the person, you have that time in order to do it versus being on a call and going, oh, I have a call in 30 minutes that you didn't know you were going to have the last minute.
Yep.
Completely agree. So much amazing goodness that you're sharing, Jonathan. So thank you so much. Another question for you I have is if we were able to give you a magic wand and you can hold it and go poof, there's one thing that I would like to fix going on in my business world right now. Do you have one? And if so, what is it?
Well, I think caring and compassion and empathy and the capacity to understand multiple perspectives is a really important capacity. It's great for sales, it's great for business, it's great for humanity. And so, part of the reason Mindful Life, Mindful Work exists is to bring together making money and being human. And that those are mutually supportive, that those aren't two projects. Those are the same project ultimately because we want to support people with resources, fiscal and otherwise. So I think the trend is trending in that direction, although it's a very big behemoth that is shifting in that direction. And so things take time. But if I had a magic wand, every business would be purpose driven and would make more money because they're purpose driven.
Because when we're making more money, we can help more people,
Yep.
right? Support more missions. So if we could revisit this conversation next year, because again, Jonathan, this is a new podcast, so thank you for being a guest. If we could revisit this conversation and bring you back in a year, what would success look like for you in mindful life, mindful work?
Well, I think in our five, I call them the five buckets. In our five buckets, I think The Mindset Social in a year, our target is to hopefully have about 3,000 users in the first year. So we'll see. That's pretty high aspiring, but we'll see if that happens. We have a mindful marketplace. Right now, I think it's just a year old. We have 35 products on there. So maybe we'd have 100 products on there. Maybe we'd triple in size. The first year was just getting the word out and people starting to trust it as an entity. We have a Mindful Work Summit coming up in 2 weeks. So, those summits have started out with just 30 to 50 attendees. So we'd be up in the 500 attendee area. And again, a lot of these new seeds have been planted just within the last year. We've gotten clearer and clearer. So I think, consistency wins the game. It always does. And so the challenge is to pick something that you can be consistent on. We've also, our coaching program, we're just beginning selling into companies. It's a scalable program. We want to bring in up to 1,000 coaches into companies. And so that seed has been planted. And then our toy project, and I say toy sort of jokingly, but I want to create a mindful news network. And so we've converted our YouTube channel into that name and to start to basically share news from a mindful perspective.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And I know that you're going to achieve it or even exceed it. So for those listening, for people that are listening, Jonathan, who is your ideal client, dream client? Is it a specific type of business in a specific market? Is it a certain size of a company? So if somebody's listening going, well, I want to work with Jonathan, but they don't know if they're the right fit, who would that be?
Well, at this stage in the services space, in our services bucket, we do a lot of work with individuals. I mean, sort of our bread and butter baseline is career development coaching or executive leadership coaching. That's been a lot of my own personal work over the years. So that's been our base. But when we're selling into companies, we're looking at engagements where 10 to 40 leaders, often middle managers, need to be coached. So for a company to have that many middle managers, it's probably a company of at least 250 to 750 employees, if not much bigger. I mean, we could service a company of 20,000 employees. We'd need 6 months to get pieces in place to really make a dent in that size of a company. But we're interested in conversations with all companies because sometimes there's a department of 5 people in a really big company like Amazon that just, want to up-level sort of their procedures. So we're really open, and if anyone's interested in all, they can approach. There's no pressure in the sell. We're looking for alignment. We're looking for a match. When it's a match, there is no sell.
Okay, absolutely. So, Jonathan, how can people reach out to you and connect with you?
The easiest our central hub website is mindfullifemindfulwork.com, which is www.mindfullifemindfulwork.com. If they're interested in the social network, again, it's mindset-social.com. If you're a creator of a mindful product, look up mindswellmarket.com. Those are sort of the 3 starting places. Come to our event. Come to our summit on the 21st. We'd love to have you. We've got a great lineup of folks to speak. But yeah, just stay in touch. Reach out on LinkedIn, follow us, let us know what you care about, and let's find overlap.
Yeah, and you can go to Mindful Life, Mindful Work on LinkedIn and join that community there. You can go, what is the social is
Mindset-social.com.
Mindset-social.com. Definitely go there and you go get in there and start networking and posting your things, everything you got. And connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the website and all the good things, and also his summits that he has and events. Jonathan, how are you finding in the marketing space? Just curious for other business owners out there. Do you have one thing that's worked for you the best, or are you just like all over social media and you just is there some visibility that you're doing that's where you're finding that most people are finding you to work with you?
Well, LinkedIn has been the main driver over the years. I mean, there was a thing called ProFinder about 6 years ago that LinkedIn launched, and they launched it in a soft way and didn't really announce it. And as we all know, providing services, it's hard to get people to talk to about services. But when ProFinder launched, I was getting up to 60 requests a day. I had wished that ProFinder had been around forever and never went away, but for some reason, they sort of sunsetted it. They sort of rolled it into the services page. I don't know if everybody has access to a services page on their profile, but my profile has a services thing. I think I got rolled in because of ProFinder. There's still requests come in through there. So LinkedIn has been far and beyond the most viable place. But now that we're branching into things beyond services, I think Instagram and Facebook will be useful in things like events and social media. But again, I wouldn't push too hard. I would just find something that you can be consistent with.
Yeah, you don't need to be everywhere all at once, but and as you grow and as you add to your team, like we've been talking about, then you can start expanding. But find where your people are, right? Be where your people are, and spend time, getting to know them and answering questions and just building up that community and that network. So
Yeah, I
thank
mean,
you.
I know people that use Pinterest. We're not even on Pinterest, and their whole business is on Pinterest. So just like you said, just find the place that resonates with your demographic.
Yeah, such a good point. Many people don't think about Pinterest, and there's a whole market out there that people are thriving building their business on
Hmm.
Pinterest. So thank you, Jonathan, so much for spending time with me today and for being with me on the Business Growth Spotlight podcast. It's been such a pleasure. Is there anything that you'd like to share before we go that I didn't ask you or we didn't touch on?
To anybody thinking about developing in their career or their business, just know that you can do it. Just sit alone for a little bit and think in your heart of hearts what you truly want your life and work to be, and you can create it. That's what I did 25 years ago. People told me there was no way I was going to create a business based on mindful approaches, and I just did what I wanted to do and stuck to it.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, go after what you want and be committed and consistent, right? Be consistent. So beautiful way to end the show, Jonathan. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for listening and being here with Jonathan and I. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and drop a comment below for Jonathan. If you're listening to us on your favorite platforms such as Amazon, Spotify, Apple, or any other platforms, and you can leave a review, please do so because it helps us get our amazing experts on here. It allows us to allow them to reach more people and support more people. And if you know of anybody that would benefit from Jonathan's message here and our conversation, please share it. We would be very grateful. Our goal is to reach as many people as we can to support them in the growth of their business. So thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you for listening to me today on the Business Growth Spotlight podcast, and to Jonathan. If you are looking to grow your visibility and you're feeling stuck and you're just feeling like you are not seen and you need to get more visible in sharing your product or service, then go ahead and download our Spotlight to Scale Blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint and grab it. It's free and it will support you in getting that higher visibility. Have an amazing day. Thank you for joining Jonathan and I today, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight.